They just got corn on their neck. Whoops. Boing! It was just corn. I'm not promoted. It was just corn, everybody. It was just corn. Oh. Hello, I didn't notice you there. Keyshawn. His eyes open. Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra. This is episode 2 of season 2 of Lower Decks. And this episode wasn't really funny at all. That doesn't mean it was bad. On the contrary. I'm thinking I might give this episode the same score I gave the last one. Which was a good score. I believe I gave the last one a 6.5 out of 10. But this one, while not being funny, it was interesting. The first one was kind of funny and exciting, but not really interesting at all. This one's interesting, but not really funny, or particularly fun to look at. As with the previous episode, the Titan is featured. That's a plus. But other than that, what we're presented with visually was just so-so. But in terms of plot, it wasn't so-so. This episode introduces a collector-type character, which we've seen in Star Trek before. We've seen multiple times. We've seen characters try to disassemble data to collect them. We've seen people try to disassemble data for scientific reasons. But we have the return of a collector. Now what that is somebody who prowls the universe looking for collectible things that are rare, things that are expensive, things of great intrigue. Starfleet has been assigned to essentially catalog and store collectible items that were left over after a collector character passed away. This character had a massive collection of things. No end to the Star Trek references in the items he had, but we'll leave it at that. Rutherford, Tendi, Mariner, and Jet go down to this ship, essentially, which is like a giant museum. Interesting concept. And we're doing a bag and tag, as Ransom said. He's left behind on the bridge. Cool character, unfortunately, is wasted on the bridge this time. So we're bagging things and we're moving things around. And this squid-like character, he seemed a little bit shady. He's a collector himself. He specifically told the Starfleet crew not to get sticky fingers and steal anything. And it takes a thief to know a thief. And later on, wouldn't you know it, he is, of course, stealing something from the collection. Just like in Jurassic Park 3, where that character stole an egg and then ended up causing massive trouble for the main cast of that film. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's called Jurassic Park 3. I guess there was 2 before it, but there must have been, if they're not going to make 3 as the first one. So if there's 2 Jurassic Parks before that one, you should check them out too. But anyway, that's beside the point. And a painting of this collector fellow who previously died, and they're in his museum, activates, essentially, and starts talking to them and saying, "You've activated my hollow defense system," or whatever the hell, and it's basically a leftover security measure that he had for his museum to basically neutralize anybody who was attempting to steal from him. But it was left active. So all of a sudden, this museum ship that they're in becomes a death trap, which is an interesting concept. I don't know if I've seen that before in the main Star Trek show / multiple series, which is why I liked it. I like concepts that are good. I like things that have intrigue, and I think this had it. It wasn't particularly funny, but it was interesting to see these characters run from the automated defenses of what is essentially a museum. Basically fending off falling structures of collectible items, giant skeletons and what have you. Jet is a character we have introduced to us in this episode, although we did see him in Season 1, just as a side character. He has a more important role in this episode than he had in his appearances in Season 1. Jet is essentially filling the role of Boimler in this episode. So Boimler is sorely missed. We'll get back to that later. Jet wants to take the calm, cool, collected approach and follow training, and basically take the long way to survive this threat. And Mariner is, of course, all gung-ho. She's just Season 1, Episode 1 Mariner. Like, just totally balls to the wall, crazy mode. Let's just shoot our way out. And this, of course, causes a conflict between Jet and Mariner. Ultimately, it's Tendi and Rutherford who discover the secret to surviving this in the simplest way, which is about destroying possibly priceless bones to create an acidic material to burn through a wall to get to escape pods, which seems something like it was just thought up by the writers at the last second. Didn't seem like a very clever writing device to me. The fact that we could just take these bones, mash them up, and they would become acid that could burn through the wall of a bulkhead in a spaceship. A little bit far-fetched. Pun intended. With the bones. These characters get off the ship. They get off their escape pod and back into the Cerritos. And if you're watching this show, tell me if you've noticed this. There's a commonality between these episodes where a character says, "Oh, I'm sure character X, Y, and Z is doing fine right now. I wonder how they're doing." And then it flashes to a scene of them going crazy and being in a horrible situation. I think I've seen that like 2 or 3 times so far this season. Namely, in this episode, the captain is trying to learn to be more hands-off with the crew, and Ransom tells her, "Oh, you haven't requested a status report yet from the away team. That's odd." And she's all like, "I don't micromanage. I'm not a micromanager. Who do I micromanage ever?" And she looks around the room and everyone's silent. But this is the one mission maybe she should have been micromanaging, because our newest addition to the crew, I believe a Temerian, gets turned into a doll. He gets turned into a collectible item, a doll, by the automated defense systems of this museum. So one of our characters has been dollified, and it's okay, though. The Doctor somehow undolls him at the end. I have no idea how. It's just brushed off. I mean, it is ostensibly a comedy, so we can overlook some things, but that's the A plot. B plot finally solves how we're going to get Boimler back in the show. And what happens is, Boimler on the Titan is involved in a really cool, like, Star Trek episode where they're hot on the trail of Pakleds who have waylaid a mining station somewhere, even though they're dumb as rocks. And basically, they're surrounded. Boimler and the really cool-looking characters of the Titan. That looks like a cool show on its own, the Titan. But they're trying to figure out how to get away, and they're all basically resigned to their fate of being dead. They're like, "Okay, guys, we're gonna die. They're gonna come in here and they're gonna kill us." But Boims, the Boim man, figures out how to do a Star Trek thing with a mining drill and uses it to temporarily bust a hole in the radiation field that is preventing beaming out. Classic Star Trek thing. Am I right? But what happens is, he does a Thomas Riker and he accidentally creates a clone of himself. So they get Boimler transported back onto the Titan, and then at the same time they're looking at a screen seeing a shuttle leave the mining colony. And wouldn't you know it, Boimler's on board the shuttle as well, so they've created 2 Boimlers. And Starfleet has decided it's too complicated to have 2 people that are Boimler on the same ship. So one of the Boimlers gets to go back to the Cerritos, baby. So the gang is back together. But we didn't get to keep Jet. If you watch this episode, it's sad what happens to Jet, because Jet is like, he figures out that, oh, you guys have a history together. Well, I better leave. I don't want to be the, I don't want to be the tag-along guy, I don't want to be a fifth wheel. Sad. But, hey, maybe he can come back later. I learned to like Jet over the course of this episode as an interesting foil to Mariner. However, I feel Boimler will be filling that role from here on out. So I'm glad to have Boims back. I'm glad the whole family's back. The episode wasn't very funny. However, at the end, Jet, Mariner, Rutherford, and Tendi are eating together and discussing what happened that day. And they look at Jet, and they're looking, oh, did you get a double promotion? Because they're looking at his pips, right? And it looks like he has another pip. And it turns out they were eating corn. And he says, oh, no, that's just corn. Most of the time when people on this ship look like they got a promotion, it's actually just corn. They just got corn on their neck. Whoops. Boing. It was just corn. I'm not promoted. It was just corn, everybody. It was just corn. That's the only funny thing that happened in this episode. So, the episode was intriguing. It may have even been interesting. Not philosophically so, but at least from an A to B plot standpoint, it was okay. But it's a give and take. It wasn't funny, but I was interested in the plot. So it's kind of like an inversion of last week's episode. So I'm gonna pretty much give it the same score. I'm giving this one a 6.5 as well. On a side note, I was on X Asterisk Scientia, Bernd Schneider's Star Trek site, and I was shocked at the review he gave for the first episode of the season. I was flabbergasted that I think he gave it a 1. I was just shocked that that seems way too low. I mean, I understand from a certain point of view, all these episodes are just bad. You know what I mean? But one is pretty nasty. But hey, we're allowed to disagree. I don't particularly look at other people's reviews before I put my note. I just go into it straight, and I give you the straight dope about what I think. What I think is not the law, but I think if people could look at this show entirely as its own thing and just throw caution to the wind, it's kind of fun. That's about all I can say. It's kind of sad, that's what we have with Star Trek now. But in the grand scheme of things, it's far from rock bottom. Like, we're far from rock bottom right now. Rock bottom for me was probably either Short Treks or Picard, if you have to know. This episode featured a Temerian, as I said before. Very interesting species. That was the character the species made famous by the TNG episode, where Picard is stuck on this planet with this character who can't speak correctly using the translator because they speak not in distinct words per se, they speak in cultural references. So he might say, like, oh, Tanagra when the walls fell, which is a reference to a historical thing in his history that would not make sense to anybody using Federation standard or even a translator, because you can't translate statements that mean something. You can only translate words, if you know what I'm saying. Go check out that episode of TNG, Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra. Or I believe the episode might have just been called Darmok. I can't remember. But it was a fascinating episode, and it's good when things in canon are brought back to the forefront. And what better use for a Temerian than a comedy, comedy Star Trek show, right? How did these people ever develop their culture like that? Isn't that strange? Speaking entirely in cultural memes, as it were. In this episode, Kayshawn, his name is, Kayshawn is learning Federation standards, so he's trying to get out of that habit, which is respectable. But at the same time, our characters are also speaking back to him in cultural parables, which was, flattering, I suppose, for him. Again, visually a lot weaker than the first episode of the season, but I guess for the first episode of a season, you want to kind of hit the audience with a bang, not a whimper. The crew of the Titan, immediately charismatic and interesting. If you haven't seen them, check out this episode just to see what I'm saying. Why is it that they have different uniforms, though? Am I crazy, or should uniforms be universal? And yes, I know I sometimes wear the wrong uniform, okay? I know. Addressing a comment from the previous video, I believe Wilford Gray, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, stated that I had moved up to command. I appreciate the sentiment, but I did not. I am still in engineering. The yellow outfit is a quote-unquote TNG outfit that I got from a time traveler. So right now, if you look at the ship behind me, this is semi-modern for the time. The time frame I'm from, wink wink. So, in the future, for some reason, I guess, operations/engineering outfits are yellow. Don't ask me why. Point being, perfect, correct uniforms are expensive. Okay? And I think it's cool having a badge that you can remove. That's one thing about these Star Trek Beyond uniforms, is that they have the metal badges that are magnetically clasped on. That's cool. I think that's an interesting idea. I think that is one solid improvement over the original, just being a patch. But I still wish I had, the perfect TOS engineering uniform, just between you and me. Just between you and me, okay? Between me and the 5 people that are watching this, okay? Let's keep that personal. Let's keep it private. So let's all just have our own secret club here, and make sure nobody subscribes, okay? Everybody, make sure everybody doesn't subscribe. Obviously, I don't mean that. So, we did have the one F-bomb in this episode. I don't know why. I hate to keep harping on it, and I'm going to try not to rehash these old arguments I've had since forever about F-bombs and what have you. I guess they're just here to stay. We can't get rid of them. They're appearing in Lower Decks and quote-unquote real Star Trek in Picard and Discovery, so I guess we just can't do anything about it. But, here's to next week's episode. Whatever it's going to be called, I don't know yet, but I'll see you guys next week. Same Trek channel, same Trek time. I'm out.